Get ready to Bomba!
Welcome back to Bomba Live, the show you've been waiting for. Thank you so much for joining us. This show's Ray Collazo. You got to remember to subscribe to Bomba Live on YouTube and anywhere you can download a podcast so you don't miss 1 second of these insightful and entertaining conversations. Con Bomba. On top of Philadelphia, we're here at the iconic Pyramid Club, and I'm here with my co-host, activist, the founder of Love Shouldn't Hurt, and most importantly, the Philly Salsera, Christina Vega. What's going on, Christina?
Not much. Thank you. I'm excited to be here. It's been a while, but I'm excited, especially with our new beautiful view. This is exciting.
Everyone is rocking the view. People
it's
love
beautiful.
the new atmosphere. I know you're getting a lot of comments from people like Christina, like, what's up with this Pyramid Club thing? So give people a little insight because you're the one that kind of blew it up on social media
I
with
did.
those pictures we had at the Content Club. Much respect to XBS guys producing the show. So what kind of feedback you're already getting from people just from the initial tease we put out there on social media?
Well, we've been doing really well through the past few years just doing this through our computers. And I think it gives us kind of a zazz to be on top of, the city of Philadelphia.
That's
People
right.
kind of undermine the city of Philadelphia, but we have a lot of beauty to it. And just shooting from up here makes it even more spectacular for us because it shows us, we are moving on up, as I stated.
There's no
But the city of
question.
Philadelphia is absolutely beautiful. So it gives people a better view of our city.
No, and we're overseeing really the beautiful skyline, and Philly's got a lot of issues, and a lot of times we get down on that, and that's kind of the theme of the first
Yeah.
half of the conversation. But Philadelphia, like you said, is a wonderful city,
It
and the
is.
skyline, the culture. I mean, we're right across the street from the Comcast Center. I mean, that's one of the biggest centers of
That's
media
right.
in the world. So it's really, but there's a rightful place right here. From Hunting
That's
Park, we're
right.
not doing too bad, Christina. We can almost see Hunting Park
Absolutely.
from here, actually. It's unbelievable. So, Christina, we're going to talk later about one of our great passions, salsa music, in our Presente segment. We'll certainly
Absolutely.
at some point catch up on, what's your, some of the great work you're doing. Love Shouldn't Hurt. I've got a little bit of a rant about 2024. The political cycle's already started. But, I didn't want to, I wanted to really have, with this conversation, Christina, I wanted to really reflect on where we're at, and kind of the Pyramid Club is sort of, kind of a great symbol of that, how far we've come.
Absolutely.
And so for people that don't know Christina, don't know me, Bomba Live, you may have seen a few videos and enjoyed some of our content. We're not only children of Philadelphia and North Philadelphia, but specifically, I want to talk about the 19140 today. I want to talk about Hunting Park, and
That's where we came from.
and that journey, because it's pretty heavy. And so Christina, let's just start from, when you think about your childhood growing up, um, just where do we start with having this conversation? Because it has been, I think it's a journey that a lot of people can relate to.
Absolutely. Well, before we do that, I want to shout out SBX Productions
Yes.
for producing today's show. They're amazing for that. It's been a crazy journey, right? When you think of growing up in North Philadelphia, people who come from the outside really don't understand what we mean by North Philadelphia, right? So if you're thinking of the Badlands, you're thinking of, a lot of, unfortunately, drug infested areas, that's predominantly what people think of when they think
Yeah.
of North Philly, right? That's the negativity that they think of. But I was born and bred there. We were only a few blocks away from one another.
Yeah.
This is our hometown, and North Philadelphia was the foundation for just me being who I am today. And I'm super proud of it. There's a lot of people who leave their
too.
hood, as they say,
Yeah.
right? And they're like, I will never go back. And, my father's still there, so I go there often, and I'm proud of that. It's kind of a reminder that, people say that you start at the bottom and you can't make your way up. But I think that for two Philly kids from North Philly, we're doing pretty good. We absolutely have worked our way
No,
up.
and on top of that, I get reminded every day on Facebook, because all of our
Yeah.
home girls, our homeboys that we grew up with, a lot of them are doing amazing things.
Absolutely.
And we're to the point now where their kids are doing amazing things.
Yes.
In college and academics, and just other endeavors that they have.
Yeah.
And I do think about that, and really it really defined my political career, because in kind of the vision I wanted to go in my life, because on one side I saw people talking about the Badlands, I saw people about Ethan Butler, and Gary Heidnick was from our neighborhood. I mean, a lot of
Absolutely.
wild stuff happened,
Yeah.
and half of a bunch of our relatives, a bunch of people that we know got swept up in those drug sweeps and incarceration. There was a lot of pain, but at the same time, all I saw was a lot of beauty. And so I'm like, if what is the disconnect between what people think we are and these people that I live with day to day, my family, our families, that that are hardworking, that are creative, that are intelligent, that are spiritual. I mean,
Mhm.
back in the days, the hood was super religious, and the church, and I'm like, and then what's the disconnect between what I see day to day in my life and what people perceive? And so that really from a activism perspective was always what drove me. What do you think our childhood? What did it teach you the most? Would you say
I think
that you still carry with day to day?
I think just the ambition and the work hard, and
Yeah,
not just kind of this being that's all we have. I got raised in a home with two very strong Latina women, but the honest fact of that is looking back, my grandmother did all of the raising and the bathing us and taking care of us, while my mother worked three jobs to put three girls by herself in Catholic school. And I think that when I think about where I am now, I think that's what made my foundation, sitting on those steps and watching the neighborhood go from sort of okay to more dangerous and the drug use, and seeing my family say, just do better than this. You have to get out of here. And I think my mother, working as hard as she did, kind of pushed me along to say, you know what? I love her. She worked hard. This is my area, but I'm going to work even harder than that because I want to make something of myself. And I think that a lot of people look back where we came from and they think you're not going to get anywhere. But, like you said, we see now the people who've come from there who are something more. Doing what I do, I never, if I think about it, if I go back to my childhood, I would never imagine myself to be someone that everyone knew. Everywhere I go, people are like, "Oh my God, you're Christina."
yeah,
Even, my bosses at the city are like, "We have someone famous on our crew." And I
yeah.
don't consider myself famous, but I feel like, wow, from where I came from, I'm impacting a lot of people. So it
You
says
know,
a lot.
you really have crystallized why I wanted to have this conversation today, because this is about the legacy of people like your mother. And when you talk about the work ethic your mom still has, and your grandmother, who remember very fondly too, I think about Don Rafa, my grandfather, who was very close to your family. And it's probably as much as the reason we're doing this, that we're still working together as anybody, and how hard he worked, in factory work and sheet metal. And he lost a couple fingers
Mhm.
after getting out of the military in World War II, and that history, and then worked on the weekends and all that kind of stuff. But the that is a big part of what drives me here, because and then as you get out of North Philly, you start interacting with other groups, especially some of the other Latino groups. I mean, keep it real. Like, there's been times where you hear immigrant Latinos and other immigrants snicker, like, oh, Puerto Ricans, they don't work like us. And they don't, and it's like part of that motivation to show people that not only can we excel, but that we're not taking this opportunity for granted. And think about all the people that, and many of them will be part of the show at different points, that that show that example to represent. What what else do you think, what else do you, because Christina, you've gone through a lot, and we've talked about Love Shouldn't Hurt, and we certainly want to hear updates from that in a little bit. But what, from that experience, and having the courage to start this organization, put your personal story out there, and help others, what from Hunting Park gave you that motivation to give you that strength to in this phase of your life?
I think in this phase of my life, I wanted to be the missing piece of what was missing during that time.
Hmm.
Growing up, there was a lot of domestic violence in our neighborhood, in our areas. And, the way that Latinos dealt with it back then was kind of just covering it and not talking about it. And, even if they did want to talk about it, we didn't have resources back then.
Hmm.
My mother struggled through it. My grandmother struggled through it, but we didn't have the resources. If they were there, they weren't as apparent, you
Yeah.
know? So I think that that was kind of like a driving force for me. Like, I want to go back to my same people and show them now a familiar Latina face who is also from North Philadelphia, who's actually working in that phase for domestic violence. So that's why I do that. But how's Hunting Park influenced you as a national political leader and media personality?
There's two pieces there. One, on the political side, and I've said this often, is that it really prepared me. I was much more prepared to do national work than I imagined I was. And so when I got to the national level, I was actually underwhelmed. I remember being in the White House for the first time, and like doing all that kind of stuff, and being in meetings with people like Jesse Jackson, and on and on and on, and being like, well, you know what, this isn't that big a deal. Like, I did this before in the
Right.
community, and a lot of people that that are from Hunting Park taught me that. Whether it was Maria Quinones Sanchez, who grew up in Hunting Park, or Danilo Burgos, who's a state rep there now in Hunting Park. A lot of the African American leaders in North Philly at the time were
Mhm.
part of my upbringing growing up in Philly. And there's lots of names. We can go on. Juan Ramos, who just passed, my godfather, rest in peace. That was really my political godfather too, in a lot of ways. So
Right.
they really prepared me. It prepared me. So I appreciated my upbringing, really getting out of Philly and seeing how the rest of the country operates. And so it was a great inspiration. And I was really prepared well. You know, if you can get through Philly politics, you can do something.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? So it really prepared. And then on the media side, and I think this is on some level, I think you would agree on some level motivates you. A lot of our friends, I think my brother Mario Collazo, aka Planetary, would agree, kind of on the music side of it, is that y'all got to understand something. I grew up at 5th and Erie. Christina grew up at 11th and Erie. Kevin Hart grew up at 15th and Erie.
Right.
P&B Rock grew up around the corner. Jill Scott, the fighter Mildred Taylor, used to run in the park. He was one of our neighbors. Danny Garcia. You know, like we grew up with a lot of that, you know, Black Star Power, creative energy in Philadelphia, and just Philly, Pink. I mean, everybody, you know. And I think on some level, as Latinos in Philadelphia, well, let me speak for myself. The challenge in my life has been, I want to be able to represent and achieve on that level where I'm acknowledged. I can hang and be seen as represented Philadelphia the way our African American and other people have represented for Philly. And so, you know, I mean, I don't think I've gotten there yet, but I think that they set such a high bar.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, the Will Smiths, the Patti LaBelles,
yeah.
you know, the Night Shyamalans, the go on and on and on, that I think that a lot of us from our community want to represent in that way and do it our style. We just had the 50th anniversary of hip hop, and it's like a lot of the Puerto Ricans on social media were like, hey, we were part of it too. You know what I mean? Like, so Christina, do you feel that way, that Philly Honey Park gave you that kind of motivation?
It did, because, you know, you saw people from our area who were just coming up when you were younger, and it's like, I want to do that too.
Yeah.
You know, and it was kind of, it's a misconception, you know, that what comes from North Philadelphia is not great. I think we have a lot of greatness, and I think that a lot of the people from our time have proven that. You know, we've become great people from our circumstances,
No
and
doubt.
I'm grateful for that, because I think if I wouldn't have dealt with half of the, you know, circumstances, situations that I did growing up in that area, I wouldn't be who I am today. I don't think if I lived in the suburbs, I'd be the same person that I am.
Well, you know, Christina, one of the things I never thought, that talk about a bucket list, was that not only we would be doing the show and obviously the Pyramid Club and working with you. You got to understand something. When like Christina's mom took her out the hospital, she drove in front of my house so my mom could see her. I mean, it's not long we've been connected, but that we would work with people like Betty D from Sweet Sensation. So
Absolutely.
when we come back, Betty D's part of this season, this new season of Bomba Live. You're going to see her as one of the co-hosts. And when we come back, you're actually gonna see a clip now of Betty D's a recent appearance on Bomba Live, when she talks about a very interesting collaboration she had at a moment where she was actually able to connect and collaborate with a fellow Puerto Rican mega celebrity. When we come back on Bomba Live, we're going to talk about Christina. We're going to flip the script, get her dancing shoes on, talk about one of her favorite topics, salsa. So more to come on Bomba Live, the show you've been waiting for. Can we have the Ricky Martin picture? We got to show it. Come on, fam. We got to show it. All right, Dios mío, look at that. Come on. Ricky and Betty, tell us this story, my friend.
Ricky Martin, Ruben. Actually, Sweet Sensation was on tour with Menudo for a minute.
Okay.
Cover Girls were on tour. It was Cover Girls, Sweet Sensation, Menudo at the time. This is right before Ricky left the group. That's Ruben right next to him, I believe. Yeah. So, yeah, we had so much fun being on tour with Menudo. Now, meanwhile, talk about surreal. I was 14 years old with my best friend from across the street, Sonia, you know, scoping out all the hotels that Menudo was in, because I was a big Menudo fan. I love Menudo. I still love Menudo.
Impressive piece of hardware I have here,
Look
Charlie.
at that. Is quite impressive.
Brother, no FOMO right here. You got to work real hard to get one of these. I want to shout out our great friend and our newest sponsor, Felix Montelada of the Latin Podcast Awards. Charlie, this is like the Oscars for Latino podcasters all over the country, all over Latin America, all over the world. And we were blessed to win the 2022 award for Best Video Podcast. So,
That's
Charlie,
amazing.
I know it's hard to, I know you're a big podcast guy like all of us. And, you know, having a resource and understanding that there's actually culturally competent podcast content out there, I know is like a real great value.
Absolutely. Like I tune into your podcast. It's funny. I found your podcast before I met you. So just so you know.
Cool.
So it was cool when I finally met you. Yeah, your podcast, I listen to Man Enough is another one that I like. I think that it's trying to break down the stereotype of having to feel or feeling less because you emote your emotions correctly.
Yeah, culturally competent content and particularly in language. The Latin Podcast Awards really gives you a breakdown of the best. If you want to find out what's going on in Uruguay or Spanish language content about mental health, just any category of interest you have related to the Latino community, you got to check out LatinPodcastAwards.com, LatinPodcastAwards.com. They just released on YouTube and online their 2023 award show, which was a very professionally done show. So I encourage everyone to check out Latin Podcast on social media and LatinPodcastAwards.com so you can watch the
For on today's Presente segment, we're going to talk about something that's so near and dear to myself, the Latino culture, just our representation and salsa.
This is so exciting. Before we get into salsa, I just want to note that our XBX production guy, Taylor, he does a wonderful job. But, you know, for those, and we're going to be announcing some stuff in the future. We're going to have some Bomba Live events where people can come out. I think he's going to end up stealing the show, these little parties and these little activities. Just the whole ballhead 5 o'clock channel thing this brother got going on. So a lot of eye candy that's part of the
He
Bomba
might
Live
have the
experience,
swag.
fam.
He has to be able to move his feet.
Well, that's
Latina women like when you can move.
that's another part of the conversation. So Christina is on the salsa side. I wanted to talk about salsa in the show because it not only is such a big part of who we are, but also salsero. It's a culture. We're going to talk about that. But salseros love to talk about salsa and what's going on with salsa, what's not going on with salsa. So we'll get to that in a second. But let's begin with this, Christina. Just what does salsa mean to you? Salsa music, the culture, the flavor. Because, you know, everybody know you're the Philly Salsera. That goes without saying.
I live and breathe it. You know, it's funny because people always ask me that. And then I have other people who say, I can tell that you love your culture. And I'm like, you're Puerto Rican too. And they're like, yeah, but there's a difference. When I dance.
There's levels to this. There's no doubt.
There's levels. I have,
no
you
doubt.
know, I go places and there's people who are learning, right? And no diss to anybody that's learning because everybody wants to learn, right? But when it's a part of your culture, like something that you live and breathe, it's different. And you can see it. You can see it with salseros on the dance floor. And people always call me bougie, right? Because we'll go to dance. And if someone taps my shoulder and asks me to dance and I've watched them on the dance floor and they don't dance as well as I do, sorry, I always say no, right?
Wow.
And people are like, you're serious. And I'm so serious because I take it like I'm passionate. When the music starts, I feel it.
No,
it's a part of my body. So I don't
want
want to dance with someone and I know that they can't dance because I want to kill it on the dance floor and you have to be able to too.
And then it's not going to be a good experience for either one anyway. Because they're going to feel like they're falling short. It's going to be obvious you're on another level. And then you ain't dancing, you ain't enjoying the 4 minutes because you're like, oh, I'm just, wow, this whole salsa snob thing, this is fantastic. I'm a fellow salsa snob. But
you are.
the in a different way. We'll get into that. So wow, this is such a good point. You just hit on a good point. Because there is a moment, look, we all, you know, the high school, college, I wasn't all that. And then there's a moment in anybody, I don't care if you grew up with salsa or not, where it goes from just being able to technically do the steps to feel it. There's a different.
There is a
I
difference.
can't really describe how that happens, but there is a spiritual element to it because on some level it goes beyond just doing the steps. You really do feel the soul of the music.
You do. And you know what? It's a part of, even that takes me back to Hunting Park in my childhood.
No doubt.
There are certain songs that could play in the car. And even with my daughter, because she's so close to me and she hears it so much, that as soon as I hear them, I'm like, that's pop. That's Mike Vega. Like people know because my father is honestly who made me have the passion for salsa. Just driving in his huge cars when I was little, he would play just, you know, Eddie Santiago, Hector Lavoe. And there are songs that kind of I grew up with. They got stuck to me. So now when the music plays, it's like a part of my childhood. Like when I'm on the dance floor, I feel it because I feel like I'm feeling a part of me. Like this is what I grew up on.
So there's also a nostalgic piece that you think about your childhood. So that I can relate to that too, because you know people don't know the original Ray Collazo was not just Ray, but he was a salsa DJ, but also a radio announcer, which is a whole other history. And hopefully we'll get him on the show at some point to talk about it. But so like not only the same thing in the car. So not only was he playing the music, he was playing his show. He would tape his show and replay it, and so it was part of like our lives, his career, and then like we had musicians come by the house and play. I remember when I think about salsa music, I think about Christmas because they would come over and play music and we just, rest in peace to Elvis Bonilla, who just passed, was one of our great salsero friends in Philadelphia, and how many times we partied with him and played music with him, and a lot of those musicians, when I was a little kid were there at the viewing. But it is so much more beyond just like music. And I'll take it a step further that it. Well, I'll get into that in a second. Is that but to your back to your point around the culture, once I figured out like learned enough to be dangerous, I definitely felt more Puerto Rican.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? It is almost
do.
like a rite of passage
It is.
in a lot of ways.
Yep.
So I encourage people to take lessons. It don't matter who you are. I'll tell you a quick story. One day I was in New York, I don't know, one of them big Latin Copa, one of them big clubs back in the days. And, you know, typical big thing, bunch of people. So this guy had a friend of ours from college. He was Latino, but he worked for a multinational company. So he traveled a lot. So he had the two most petite little Asian women, like real tiny, little frail women. And he was like, I was like, oh, these are your coworkers? He said, yeah. I'm so exhausted. I said, what are you talking about? He goes, they're my coworkers in Japan. They're humongous salseras. So now they're in the Mecca in New York.
Yep.
So they've been here for 5 days, and all they want to do every night is go to all these salsa clubs.
Yep.
So he's like, this is night 4. I'm exhausted. I'm tired of these two. And they were awesome. Like for little tiny little things, they were phenomenal dancers. So anybody could be a great dancer. And then we could enjoy and feel the music. Those women felt it like everybody else. Mm-hmm. So tell me about the scene, Ted, because I must say, you know, as a married guy, I don't get out that much anymore. So like, I'm kind of retired from the scene. So like, talk to me about the Philly scene, because you seem to be, you're definitely the Philly Salsera. Like,
I'm still in
is
there.
the scene still popping?
You know, it was a lot more popping when I was a teenager, right? But if you're in the social,
The Stardust
if you're,
era, is that what you're talking?
yes,
referring
those
to?
were
Come
like
on
the
now.
8th floor, you
Come
know,
on
these
now,
Gran
come on.
Manzana, like these
Brazil's
were things.
was still popping back in the days, like
Brazil
Wednesdays, yeah.
actually is still popping.
Yes.
If you pop up on a first Thursday or a Wednesday, shout out to DJ Paulie.
Yeah, Foley's our guy, yeah.
Absolutely, it is still popping and it is packed. But the scene has changed so much. It's gone through so many, you know, changes with DJs and venues closing.
Yeah.
So I'm still a part of the scene. I'm still out there. I'm still active, but it's not as active as it used to be. But we have new people who are promoting La Salsa Syndicate and different organizations that now are searching for like the key places, and they just do blasts. And people show up. They have the Bach Bar. They have different places now where people will show up. So the scene isn't as hot as it used to be, but it's climbing back up there.
Well, the thing, and the true Salsera, like Christina, like you got to do what you got to do. I see you out in Lancaster.
You gotta
and,
go
you know,
wherever
you got to go where you got to go. You know what I'm saying? I don't know what to tell
Wherever
you.
the music's playing.
So let's go back to the cultural part, because, and we talked earlier about it. We just celebrated, rightfully so. It was a lot of fun. The 50th anniversary of hip hop, and hip hop's a part of our culture. And I encourage people to go to Bomba Live's YouTube channel. I just did a 3-part, huge 1.5 hour in total set of episodes with my brother Planetary. We talked about hip hop culture, Tough Crew, Philly, North Philly, breakdancing, the whole thing. So I encourage you to check that out. But salsa is very much in the same way we talk about the conversation lately has been around. Hip hop is more than just like rapping and a beat. It's like a culture. Salsa and salsa dance culture, salsa music culture. It's a culture. It's not just about the music. Can you talk a little bit about how you see it as a whole like vibe and not just like a music?
It is, even if it's not just the music, but just there's groups. If you go through Philadelphia and you go to different Latin scenes, there are groups that you will see at every place you go.
Oh yeah,
Like,
it's a life.
it's a life,
Oh,
and
yeah.
it is a part of who they are. Like they live and breathe it. Like they
No
wake
doubt.
up and they're looking for places because it's a family. You know, once
Mhm.
you know certain people and you dance with certain people, and then you go to the next venue and you see those same people, it's like, hey, it's like, and that's what we
And
call
you're on my
ourselves,
level.
the
You
salsa
have
family.
chemistry with dancing.
Yeah, and they, you know, just like with hip hop music, you know, there's just people that you know in
Yep.
hip hop. You know,
Yep.
with salsa, there's just people that you know. Like everywhere you go, you're gonna know these people, and you know, you're gonna know these artists. And you know, listen, we have people like Avant. He was a former Philadelphia Eagles player.
Jason Avant's out there like that?
He is. If you people have not looked, find his Instagram.
Are you for real?
I've danced with him tons of times.
You know what's
He is an
hilarious?
amazing
Jason's a
salsa
good guy. You know
dancer.
what's funny is that he has that launch zone
Mhm.
by my house. So I see him all the time because he's like real hands on. So it's so I know him from like, you know, owning a jump place and like
Well,
serving pizza at the party.
He is,
and he's a
he
big
is
salsa
a part
guy,
of
huh?
our salsa family. I dance with him
Nice.
all the
Oh,
time,
next
and
time I
he is
see him.
great. He can get on the dance floor. So
Okay.
it's something, and he became a part of that culture, right? And he became a part of our family.
Did XBS
So
Productions know
everybody
that Jason Avant was a big salsero?
Jason
These are the
Avant.
Big Eagle podcast guys. They don't have this kind of information.
Yes, he
This
is
good.
a salsero. He's a part of our salsa family.
Nice.
Everywhere you go
Very nice.
in Philadelphia, salsa scene, he's there every week.
He's got great hands. That was his thing.
He
He didn't
does.
drop
He's
nothing,
great.
so I'm sure he's cool to dance with.
He's great.
That is very cool. So the the culture with the dancers, and there's a big fashion element to that,
Yeah.
right? With the ladies, especially the guys too. You know, I want to shout out
Women take it seriously.
our great and the shoes and changing and all that. I want to shout out our great friend DJ Jose Rodriguez
Yeah.
because at his birthday party, I was so impressed. I actually posted about this on social media. Is that I was so impressed? I mean, by all of it, the level of dancers, but also the level of fashion
Yeah.
that people brought to the, you
Yeah.
know, and the DJs, and you could shout out a
Yeah.
couple of your DJ buddies, are Reds. I see him on the radio
Reds,
now.
yeah.
And everyone's doing his thing. So like, and then there's obviously the musicians and the music and the singers. And it's interesting because I love being a salsa snob, but we are a picky bunch. And so one of the things that's interesting on social media I wanted to pick your brain about is that, especially now with the reggaeton musica urbana movement is so dominant, is that salsa snobs get real like indignant about it. Like, oh, it's not like the old days. It's not like the music we had. This isn't the same. And I'm like, some of you salsa had some of the raunchiest lyrics of all time. So let's keep that real. Let's stop with this, revisionist history.
Yeah.
The other thing too is that it's not like the more reggaeton gets big, salsa hurts it. We got to support salsa.
Not at all.
So my question to you is: there's some new young guys. Shout out to the main guys, the Philly kid, Luis Figueroa.
Yeah, he's killing it.
Christian Alicea is another guy.
Mm-hmm.
Luis Otero, a couple of the South Americans. Yeah, Aida Plasencia, Tony Sucar, that did the Michael Jackson remix album. So, like, I guess my question to you is, what are we complaining about? If all the regular salseros are still around, Mark Anthony's still around doing his thing, Frankie Negron, our homies out here, and we have new people we can support. So, are we supporting the young guys? Are we just sticking to the past? Like, what's going on with the music scene?
I think it's a matter of perception and what people prefer. I think Luis Figueroa is killing it. I like his
doubt.
songs.
And
I'll
by the
play
way,
them in
Philly,
my car.
New York, hold on for a second. Bronx, all that. Con la salsa. Luis Figueroa grew up with us in Philly. Thank you very much.
And he was mentored by Mark Anthony, so that tells you something
Thank
about
you.
it.
That's
Born
right.
and raised in North Philly.
No doubt.
Um,
And by the way, was a child prodigy. He's like
That's
Bruno
right.
Mars. When he was 4, we've known Lucito
Yeah,
since he was 4
tiny.
or 5. He'd go to the festivals. Like,
Mhm.
we all knew growing up he was going to be the next big guy. It's not a new phenomenon. So, by the way, Luis, when you coming on Bomba Live, Pop, that's right here. Get another mic. Anyway, next time.
So that's my thing. I like him. I think he's doing great. I will always support him.
No doubt.
It's just a matter of preference, I guess. Like, see, I love new music and I'll hear it and I like it, but I will never love it as much as old school.
You know, it's funny you
I
say
am
that.
big on old school salsa.
It's so funny you say that because, like, I'm trying to promote these new guys because it's important. And then this guy, Chris Alley, said this little pretty boy guy. And I think I forwarded to you. I got forwarded to my wife the other day. I'm like, oh, you should like this guy. Good looking kid. He got a lot of flavor. She goes, it's cool, but it's not the same.
Right.
And it's like as much, yeah, he's cute and the music's fine, but it's not Mark Anthony. It's not Victor Manuel. It's not Gilberto. It's not La India. He's like, I just can't get into it. But she can get, it's funny because she can get into the new reggaeton stuff. Like she loves Rao and Bad Bunny and all
You
that.
know why? Because I think that we grew up with salsa and it was something that was always there. And even though reggaeton has been there for a very long time,
It's not the same. Yeah,
it wasn't
it's much
as
bigger now.
appreciated or
By
as
us.
big.
It was big in Puerto Rico,
Right.
but the Puerto Ricans
So now
here,
it's like
it took us a
brand new.
minute.
Yeah,
It's
'cause
newer.
I love reggaeton. I'll
Yeah.
get down with some reggaeton in my car. I'll spend the whole day
Yeah.
listening to it. But it's just, to us, it's brand new. Salsa for us has been there forever.
Yeah, it was the foundation. So I try to equate it to people that salsa music's like our especially Puerto Rican. I'd say for Puerto Ricans and Colombians. Everybody else is a little different. But it's really our soul music.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it's, so if you think about like hip hop and R&B, it's like, it's always going to be the base in terms of our soul because
Absolutely.
of its background. And we don't have time to get into it. And we'll have other salseros and experts, historians talking about, how it started and the rhythms are from Cuba and New York, Puerto
Yeah.
Ricans developed it and then everyone blew up with everybody else. But it is such a core part of who we are. And like you said, it's not just about the music, it's about the culture, whether it's a dancer, musician, DJ, fashion, what have you. And it's also about the memories that is connected to because when those Puerto Rican communities in the Bronx and North Philly and Chicago were on the come up in the 70s and 80s, it was all salsa.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
So what else should people know about the salsa scene and anything else you wanted to share about your life as the Philly Salsera?
If you're going to tap my shoulder, know how to dance.
Wow. I didn't know you were going to put the gauntlet down.
Yeah.
So the other thing I want to mention to you salsa snobs out there is that not only did we talk about it, there's young boys and young women you can support. We just listed. You just start there. Figueroa, Alicea, Willie Otero, Yahaira Plasencia, Tony Sucar, right there. There's plenty of them. But there's also, and also the old heads still make music. Get Frankie Negro's new albums. Get Mark,
Yeah.
Soundlo support their new stuff, then they can promote more. But the reggaeton guys make good salsa.
They do.
Faruco makes poppin' salsa.
That's right.
Zion and Lennox make good salsa music. There's a lot of them that are
Everything's
supporting.
intertwined.
Everything's intertwined. They collab a lot, these guys and gals. So you gotta support where our people are at. I know that before we get your final thoughts on this episode, Christina, you wanted to ask me a question on our Found in Translation segment.
Well, Ray, 2024 election cycle is upon us. Has it already started? Like, are people already out there pushing?
It has already started, and I have a confession to make on the show, Christina. That, I try to, give people good information here. Everyone knows my political leanings. I think I'm pretty much where our community's at generally. But I try to keep it real with y'all. I don't say we're all going to agree on everything. And I'm not saying we're going to, but I try to keep it real, and I try to keep it respectful. I did get out I was a little out of pocket the other day. Because somebody on Instagram, I think it was PR Flags Up, if I'm not mistaken, reposted a video of some Puerto Rican guy saying something to the effect of, he had some videos that were showing Latinos discriminating against other Latinos because they were Spanish or they were immigrants. So I basically posted well, that's the same mentality for these Latino Trump supporters. They're all sellouts. So I just made that's a broad statement. I should admit that's probably a little too broad. I understand that. Not every single Latino Trump supporter is a sellout. But I didn't necessarily direct anybody specifically. But all the little trolls started coming out like, oh, who are you? You don't know nothing.
They will be there.
You don't know nothing. I support this guy, da. So I said, all right. Well, then now if you want to engage me, let's go take it down. I'm not all on top of Biden, but these are the things he's done. What's your man done? Nah. You're just divisive. So my point is, if you're going to come at me, we're going to break down all kind of stuff here. And we're going to keep it as factual as possible. Obviously, our opinions, but these are going to base on things that are really not just chit chat. Right. If your answer is to all my challenges, to your assumptions and what you believe is, well, I just feel that way, or my money was good with this guy, or you're a troll, or you're this and that, then that shows you really don't got much to say. So we're going to have plenty to say here, and we're going to bring facts. And like I said, I criticize Biden all the time. I'll keep it real with y'all. I can't get into the details of it, but very, very high level conversation. And, Vice President Harris spoke at my job Unidos US's conference not too long ago. And so they wanted to know what I thought about her presentation. And so, like I said, the easy thing for me to say would have been, oh, it was unbelievable. It was so wonderful. Oh, my God, she's so incredible. Kept it real. I said it was fine. It was good. She said all the right things, but she wasn't strong enough about what's going on in Texas with that border situation with the buoys and kids getting hurt trying to cross. She wasn't. They're not being strong enough about that. To me, I'm not an expert, but to me, if the federal government says it's illegal to do what the Texas National Guard did, then why can't the federal government go take the shit out? That's my opinion. Like, why we gotta wait for a court and a battle? If federal government feels like they, if the cop says you can't do that, but the committee, the block captain does it, what does the cop do? They clear the way. Right. So they got to keep that. My point was we got to do more. It's fine what they said, but we got to push more. So I am far from a flag waver and just going along the line. We got to keep it real. This administration has done a lot of things that are very substantive, and the other side is the alternative is really crazy. Christina, I want to give you, of course, as the Puerto Rican woman here, the last word. Puerto Rican women always get the last word, don't matter. But so I want to make sure you have the last word here on this this great episode of Bomba Live.
Puerto Rican woman, last word. This might take a while. I'm joking. Well, it was great to be back here with you again today. But I think what we took away from this entire segment, I think there are a couple things, right? The first thing is be proud of where you came from. Yeah. North Philly is where I was born and raised, and it made me, and I think that I've done pretty well. So always be proud of where you came from, because I think that that's super, super important. The second thing is be proud of your culture. Still make it a part of you. People grow in society and they get these high titles and they kind of forget their culture, they forget their dance, they forget everything. And to you, it may seem minimal, but it's ways to help you feel more connected to, where you come from. So I've been super proud of that. It's exciting to start this journey again with Bomba Live, our collaboration as well with Love Shouldn't Hurt and what we do for domestic violence and domestic violence survivors. So, I hope we can continue to do this. And I hope that today's show was fun and informative for all of you.
It was a lot of fun. I think a lot of people, the birds are going to be chirping at this conversation, especially on the salsa stuff. Don't step to Christina on the floor unless you got it. Thank you, XPX Productions. Thank you, the family here at Pyramid Club. The rest of our collaborators, of course. You're seeing a lot of great co-hosts and collaborators here on Bomba Live. Betty D's going to be back on the show very soon, our homegirl, as well as the rest of the crew. And please subscribe to Bomba Live on YouTube. Download it anywhere you can join the podcast. for the show you've been waiting for your whole life?